Don't you just love going out in public with like a brand new pair of Levi jeans? You feel like a badass. You're strutting your stuff. Your ass probably looks great in the jeans. And then you realize your zipper was down the entire day and nobody said anything. Like, not even the homies told you, like, hey, your fly is down. They just let you walk around looking like a complete idiot. And then you'd like start thinking back to the entire day and wonder exactly who might have seen your tiny little chode. Well, that's just life, I guess. But I think it's a perfect analogy for today's video, where I decided to kind of break down this entire Maximum Marvel Legends series line. Today we're going to be talking about the new Hulk. Yes, I did talk about it in a previous video for the newest Hasbro live stream, and I kind of talked about every single release and just gave my own personal thoughts on those figures. In today's video, I think we're going to break it down a little bit more specific and talk about some of the issues that I have with the figure, and then also some of the really cool and neat features that I think are at least worth mentioning, whether you're going to pick the figure up or not. And we'll also speculate on the price point and then what we could potentially see in the future from this line. Without further ado, let's get straight into the figure itself. And I guess we should talk about what's new and what isn't. I will say, the moment that I saw those legs and arms with those disgusting, ugly pinholes, not only did I want to puke, but you just can't look away. Like, that's all you're going to notice from now on. If you have that 80 years Hulk, which I think most of us have seen that body mold. I think it's been like in a Wolverine first appearance 2-pack. It's been in like a gray retro carded version. It was with that Bruce Banner 2-pack, and then the SDCC exclusive retro carded version, and then there was the Target exclusive Red Hulk. I mean, we've just seen so many different uses for this body mold, and yes, technically it isn't reusing that entire action figure, but it is using very important key features, and that's what really got under my skin. And look, I'll be brutally honest with you guys, I think some of the features that are being upgraded with this figure are definitely worthy of being talked about. I think that vinyl chest piece, which is essentially like kind of a softer plastic, is what I understood from the live stream. It's supposed to help with the arms being able to articulate forward, although I said in the recap video that I preferred butterfly joints that cut into the front part of the torso rather than having this really weird soft vinyl piece attached to the figure. It's really big and hunky, and from far away it looks really weird. It looks like the mid torso is a little bit gappy too because of that soft vinyl on top of the action figure. I can only imagine what it's going to look like underneath. They're essentially just covering up like the articulation and the joints and things of that nature to make the figure a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But I've also noticed that when the figure articulates his arms forward, there is going to be a little bit of slack with that vinyl on top. So I'm going to assume that it's going to look a little bit bulky around the shoulder areas, which I think kind of ruins the aesthetic aspect of it. Like, if you really wanted to hide the joints, I think you could have done something a little bit different. I've said it before, I prefer pinless technology, and I prefer to have action figures that kind of hide butterfly joints or hide the double jointed knees and things of that nature. But for the most part, I don't think it's like an end all for me. It's not really the end of the world if I see joints or if I see pins or things of that nature. But because we've just become so accustomed to Hasbro kind of using that technology and pushing the action figures forward to be more realistic, I just felt like this kind of fell flat on its face. You're getting, by the way, speaking of faces, you're also getting 3 different head sculpts. All of them, I think, are supposed to be based on different source materials, different panels, different comic book appearances. But I will say only one of these is really interesting to me. I don't like the slick back douchey look. He looks like the kind of weirdo that would use a Speedo out in like a public pool. And then you have the other one that just has a giant grinning smile, which is, I don't know if it's a smile per se, but his teeth are just gritting out. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Personally, I love the one that has his giant mouth open. You can definitely feel the rage, the anguish from that head sculpt. As I said, the other two I could care less for. In terms of the different accessory pieces, I guess they're pretty cool, but they're meant for just like 1 or 2 different poses. And then it would be an absolute crime against humanity to not mention that you're getting new feet with this action figure. If you're a feet type of person, then this is all for you. But me personally, I get the toe articulation. I get that it adds like another layer when it comes to posing your Marvel Legends Hulk action figure. And I think that's really what this is all about. I will say the way that I break this down, at least in my personal opinion, and I think one of the bigger problems that a lot of people have with the Maximum series thus far, including the Hulk as well as the Spider-Man, I think the biggest issue is or has a lot to do with the accessories. I think that's one of the big major concerns. A lot of people feel like a lot of the budget is being spent on the accessories rather than actually like moving the figure forward, rather than like updating the sculpts or the articulation or the type of technology that they're using to get the figure to articulate, or maybe hide some of those articulation points that I think will make the figure look more aesthetically pleasing. I'm not sure what that is necessarily. I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have all of the answers, but that's why they make the big bucks, I think. And I think that's one of the big major concerns with a lot of people here. Why do we need 3 different head sculpts for, your Hulk action figure? We already have quite a few. There was the Toy Biz anniversary, the retro carded, the SDCC version. Like, all of those can be interchangeable and swapped in and out. So why include 3 different head sculpts for a figure when you can only really display one? And let's be brutally honest, I think in most cases, most people are just interested in maybe 1 or 2 of these head sculpts. I don't think everybody wants 3 different head sculpts for their Marvel Legends Hulk action figures. Let's not forget, most of us have already been picking these up. Most of us have at least like 3 to 4 different versions of this Hulk. So I think it feels a little bit like overkill. Like, could they have done something where maybe we only get 1 head sculpt? Maybe they get rid of the missile accessory, and then simultaneously you get rid of those 2 extra hands that are essentially placed in there just to hold the missile. So essentially get rid of the 2 head sculpts, get rid of the missile, get rid of the 2 extra hands. Right there, we've already cut away like $10 to $15 worth of the figure. And if you were to do that, maybe not so much cutting the price off, because I don't think that Hasbro's ever going to do that, but maybe invest those $10 to $15 into the actual figure. Give us some new legs without the pins, maybe give us some new arms. And I will say, and I said this at the beginning of the video, the moment that you see that they're reusing the legs and the arms, you just can't unsee it. It just feels like a slightly updated version from what we've been receiving. And I think that's what a lot of people were comparing the Spider-Man to. They were comparing like the Renew Your Vows to the new Maximum line Spider-Man, and they felt like there were too many similarities. Like, the articulation points were essentially the same, aside for the neck, and I believe the hips were the only real difference. I personally don't own the figure yet, so I can't really give you guys my thorough personal opinion on that, but I'm just guiding myself off of what I've seen online. I will say, and I think the biggest difference here between the Spider-Man and the Hulk, as far as the live stream goes and as far as the information that Hasbro gave us, they never said that this Marvel Legends Hulk was brand new head to toe. Like, they never made that assertion. They simply said that the mid torso, or the whole entire torso, was brand new. That's all that they said. They never made a mention about this figure being brand new or being new technology, aside from, as I said, the torso. However, with the Spider-Man, they made it very clear. They re-emphasized the fact that the Marvel Legends Spider-Man Maximum Spider-Man action figure was actually brand new head to toe. Now, yes, it did have toe articulation, it did have butterfly joints, it had pinless technology, it had all of the things and all the bells and whistles that the original release, or what we like to refer as, the second best at this point, which is the Renew Your Vows action figure. Like, it had all of that, and a lot of people just assume that the neck or the head articulation had been updated. Like, that's the only real difference. And yes, technically they do have the same articulation scheme. However, and I should reiterate this, and I did in the video where I broke down the Maximum Spider-Man action figure, I will clarify, that figure is brand new. It is reusing a lot of the same tech and the same articulation scheme, but that doesn't mean that it's the same body mold. And I think that's where a lot of people got lost. They were confusing the terminology. Hasbro made it very clear and simple that this was going to be a brand new figure, whereas with the Hulk, they never said that. They clearly mentioned the newer features, the newer aspects of the figure, but they never, made mention of the legs or the arms or whatever, pieces, whatever technology they were reusing from the 80 years body mold. And I think it's important to kind of draw the distinction there. That's why I think on the surface that Spider-Man I think is like head and shoulders above this Marvel Legends Maximum Hulk. In terms of price point, I think this is going to get very interesting. It's going to be a very heated debate. They did exactly what we thought they were going to do. They announced the figure and then didn't give us a price point. There are some people out there that are speculating that this figure could be as much as $100. I personally don't believe so. My guess originally for the Maximum Spider-Man Marvel Legends action figure, I believe, was $45, 40 to 45, so it was, about $45, and it was about off by $5. So I'm gonna assume that this one, again, doing the math, it's a much smaller figure, much less plastic, things of that nature. So I'm going to assume the Hulk is probably around that $70 to $75 price point. I'm not sure if it's worth it to you. I do believe that there's enough in there to actually warrant a $75 to $80 price point. I do believe that the engineer work is great. I do believe that they're striving to, move the line forward. Having said that, I think it's a matter of personal perspective. I mean, like in my personal opinion, because I already have that particular body mold or that buck for Hulk, I just don't feel like this release has enough value for me. I feel like it's a minor upgrade, so I'm really just paying the extra $75 to get another Hulk with some minor upgrades. It just feels, I don't know, it feels a little bit dirty. It feels a little bit shady, at least from my personal perspective, from my personal opinion. If this had been a brand new figure from head to toe, I think it'd be a completely different conversation. And by the way, that's just coming from somebody that owns just 2 different versions of this buck. There are people that collect every single Marvel Legends action figure that, gets released, and they potentially have that Red Hulk. They potentially have the SDCC exclusive. They have every single version, which I think is like 9 or 10 different versions of Hulk using this particular body mold. Could you imagine them having to now shell out $75 to $80 for a brand new Marvel Legends Hulk? I think that's absolutely insane. And so I think it'll be a matter of personal perspective. If you don't own that many Hulk Marvel Legends action figures, or if you're brand new to the game and you don't own any, this could be your end-all Hulk. And I definitely feel like there's value there. If you're willing to pay the extra, $80 or whatever the price may be, I think there's definitely a very good reason behind it. Whereas in somebody that's been collecting for years, that have bought multiple different Hulks, I don't know if they'd be as quick to shell out that type of money. And another thing, this is kind of, off topic, but I will say, if Hasbro really wants to get into the game of, reaching that import level price point, I think they're going to start being judged according to what we expect from import figures. And that has a lot to do with the accessories. It has a lot to do with the type of plastic that they're using. It has a lot to do with the articulation scheme and things of that nature. So it's very important to keep that in mind. If Hasbro continues to, mark up their maximum line to about that price point, I think it's very important to realize that they will be compared to the Meskos, to the Mafex, to the SH Figuarts. As much as I do feel like most of these are massively overrated, they're just going to be compared to that. It is what it is. You're reaching new heights, you're reaching a new price point, and the consumer, the community, they're just going to take this Maximum Spider-Man action figure and compare it to their Mafex action figures, or their SH, or whatever other big line is out there that is around that price point. It just is what it is. And I think Hasbro is definitely going to reach, or I should say their product is going to reach a new level of scrutiny. There's going to be like a different tier for them now because of the fact that they're charging so much for their collectibles. So it's a matter of personal perspective. Honestly, this is one of those figures I'm just going to wait and see. If I see it in person and I thoroughly enjoy it and like it, I'll probably pick it up, but it's one of those that kind of just hurts a little bit more because I do own a couple of these Hulks and it's the same body mold and what have you. Now, what's really interesting is looking forward what, we could potentially see from the Marvel Legends Maximum series line. I know people are just losing their minds. They want this to be over. Unfortunately, if they continue selling figures, if they continue being profitable, they're not going to stop making this line. I think it'll continue as long as they're making money. What characters could we potentially see next? I mean, my personal theory, and I've already talked about this in a previous video, but I think it will be Iron Man. I think you will get some new articulation scheme, some new joints, some new tech to really get the armor to look great, but also articulate incredibly well. You'll get probably a couple of unmasked head sculpts, or, you know, Tony Stark head sculpts. I think we're going to get at least 2 of those. He's going to come with a bunch of different repulsor blast effects, and I think we will get different iterations of those same exact blast effects, maybe different colors for the plastic. I think it'll be that translucent plastic, but they're definitely going to be new. It's not going to be reused from what we've seen thus far. And I do feel like eventually with the Maximum line, we are going to get like the end-all action figure stand. I think that's something that's been in the works, or at least I've heard rumblings about there being a new action figure stand coming from Hasbro, so definitely keep an eye on that. But there are other characters that I would love to see. I've seen a lot of people floating around the idea of a Punisher Deluxe Maximum Marvel Legends action figure, which I will say I'll probably pull back on that one just because we just got like what a lot of people consider the end-all Punisher action figure, but I would love to see something like that. Maybe a removable like bulletproof vest with a bunch of different pockets, a bunch of different weapons, maybe even little blast effect pieces that can be ported on to the end of the rifles and the different handguns that we could potentially get, maybe some knives. Same thing with the head sculpts. I think we would probably get like maybe 2 to 3 different Frank Castle head sculpts here, which kind of ties into a potential HasLab project. We've been hearing rumblings about potentially getting a Punisher Van HasLab project. We haven't seen a lot of vehicles announced for the Marvel Legends line. I think we got the Engine of Vengeance not too long ago. That was a complete mishap, but I think a Punisher van would probably be a better option for sure. And I know I've already talked about this in a previous video, at least 2 different videos, but I do believe that we could get like some Maximum Marvel Legends symbiote action figures, whether that's Carnage, whether that's Venom, or a different character, but I do think it will be a symbiote with like a couple of different head sculpts, interchangeable hands, interchangeable tendrils that can be ported all along the body, some great texture to the body mold all around. I think they're going to go all out with a symbiote action figure. I've already said that I think we will potentially be getting a ton of different symbiote action figures this year. I think it's the year of the symbiote. Only time will tell if I'm right, but I definitely feel like a Venom or a Carnage could be great candidates for the Maximum Marvel Legends line. But there you guys have it. I'm not going to ramble too much. I'm not going to go too deep into it. You know, I feel like with every single reveal from the Maximum line, I feel like I'm just going to keep repeating myself. So, you know, there will be other candidates, there will be other figures, other characters I would love to see in the Maximum line. Hopefully they do it justice. I feel like here we got somewhat of a half-hearted attempt at a Maximum Marvel Legends action figure, but that's just my personal opinion, my personal take. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, if you guys enjoy this type of like just random action figure ranting sessions, make sure to stay tuned because I do this pretty consistently. We're updating, I think, like almost on a daily basis, I want to say. So again, stay tuned. We have a ton of content coming at you guys. Stay safe out there, and as always, make sure to enjoy the hobby. That's the most important part of all this. Photograph them, play around with them, pose them, just have fun. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.